better place, I promise you, than GameTime Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into GameTime Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome in. Happy Thursday to you now, January the 30th of 2025. It is Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Certainly appreciate you stopping by for what should be a fun night on the hardwood here as we have another good-sized college basketball slate on tap for tonight. 58 games to choose from here. A whole lot of mid-major and low major conferences in action. But we do have a couple of Big Ten battles here that will take top billing. One coming up here in the bottom of the hour as Penn State, hard luck Penn State, can't seem to buy a win these days, but they are certainly extremely competitive. Well, they'll be at home taking on Ohio State, who they win 3, they lose 2, they win 2, they lose 3. It's been that kind of year for Ohio State, but that is going to be the first big game of the night coming up. And like we mentioned, a whole lot of mid-major and low-major action, all culminating to, I think, is going to be a really good game tonight when UCLA hosts Oregon. Out west there. That should be a good one. We'll talk plenty of college hoops as the show progresses here. NBA action here tonight. Not a ton of games here, but some very interesting matchups here in these 5 games that are slated tonight, including, the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Houston Rockets here. A big battle of these two up-and-coming West Coast, Western Conference teams, I should say. That game coming up 9:30 tonight here. Memphis been doing nothing but getting money in the marketplace here as they are now currently a 5.5 point favorite at home over the Rockets there. You also have, a reeling Lakers team. All sorts of injuries there coming up. What is going to happen with Anthony Davis, who, of course, is out now with an abdominal issue here. Austin Reeves, who in the right mind is going to step up for this Lakers team? But it really shouldn't matter tonight. Why? Well, they're taking on the Washington Wizards, and we all know what that's like here as a team that can probably not get to double-digit wins here tonight. My guess would be on the season, they ain't going to get the double-digit wins at all in any way, shape, or form. This is not a very good team. But the Lakers need to get some wins when they can. 6-40 is what the Wizards are in the season. And somehow the Lakers still aren't laying double digits in this matchup, hovering around the 8.5 mark. Wizards, of course, played last night at home, and they promptly got smoked by the red-hot Toronto Raptors, who's not a very good team either, but it really didn't matter when you're playing the Wizards. So maybe, just maybe, the Lakers can put it together and get a big win here tonight. Also coming up top of next hour, the Hawks and the Cavs, another interesting matchup. The Cavs seem to be going up and down right now. We really didn't think they were going to run the table and only lose 9 games on the year, did we? Coming off a good game against Miami, where they righted the ship up here a little bit, but now they're home taking on a struggling Atlanta Hawks team. It's a double-digit spread, as you saw there, 11. Oh boy, I don't know if we can trust the Cavs to be running away with games these days. That total a little high, too, at 240. The Minnesota Timberwolves tonight will be taking on the Utah Jazz. They went down to the wire with the Phoenix Suns last night. What a great battle that was. A lot of minutes used by the starters on the Timberwolves last night. Now they got to go to the altitude and take on the Utah Jazz, who have rested and have been pretty good in this spot over the season. And you got to love it, too. This one opened up at 7.5. It's already down to 6. Utah Jazz getting 6 in this one. And then the late game will be the Orlando Magic. Can they get back on track? Taking on the feisty Portland Blazers in Portland, in fact. 5.5 is what that number is currently. Orlando, a road favorite, just a low number there at 212.5. We've had plenty of headlines across the day here today, including maybe, get ready for it, because pitchers and catchers, folks, are getting ready to report. That's right. Spring trading is just a couple of weeks away, and still some question marks on the open market where maybe some of the biggest names that you know are going to land. Well, one of the names, Max Scherzer, the free agent right-handed starting pitcher, has now agreed to terms earlier today with the Toronto Blue Jays on a 1-year deal, paying him roughly $15.5 million. Now, Scherzer, another one of these 40-plus pitchers that just doesn't know how to walk away. Managed, 9 starts with the Texas Rangers last season. He did battle hamstring and shoulder injuries. He's 40 after all. I don't know what's going on here, but he did have back surgery, of course, a couple of years ago. He was good a couple of years ago, but not $15 million, I guess, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you basically swung and missed out on every other free agent worth their weight in salt. But you did land a 40-year-old over-the-hill Max Scherzer, whose best days are long behind him. So I'm sure Toronto Blue Jay fans are ecstatic with that signing here. Of course, coming off the heels of Justin Verlander still signing with teams here, which is also, I think, pretty funny. We did also hear some interesting news coming out of Miami. And this story broke earlier today in my neck of the woods on how the NBA might possibly have been investigating Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat on a possible link to Jonte Porter. Now, Jonte Porter, you may recall, was the former Toronto Raptor that has been banned for life from the NBA for gambling. And the NBA is conducting an investigation. It's from back in March of 2023. Now, the NBA did say they didn't find any rules violations, but they are continuing to investigate. There is no word here from Miami in any way, shape, or form, who's dealing with, shall we say, a couple of issues of their own as well, namely, are you trading Jimmy Butler? Are you not trading Jimmy Butler? What in the world are you doing, Pat Riley? Somebody has got to figure out what is going on with the Miami Heat and Pat Riley. And one other final story, a bit disturbing, coming out of the NFL. has to do with the Baltimore Ravens. Legendary kicker Justin Tucker has been accused of inappropriate behavior by massage therapists, per a report. Now, he has come out and denied all of this. 6 women have accused Justin Tucker of sexual misconduct. The NFL is reporting that they are investigating. So, unfortunately, a lot of players across the leagues making headlines here today, and not the most positive light. But as we get more information, we'll pass that along to you. In the meantime, we got plenty of action getting ready here tonight. College hoops, we've got NBA, we got so much more to get to as Game Time Decisions. We're just getting started here on the grid.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we're getting ready for a whole lot of hardwood action here tonight. 56 games on tap here in college hoops. We got 5 in the NBA. There's got to be a couple of ways to look at these cards here tonight, and nobody better to point us in the right direction and our good friend Tom Vecchio in the house here, looking at this slightly less than, I don't know, it feels like the NBA, it's feast or famine these days. Either you get 29 games or you get 3. But we do have 5 to choose from here tonight. And I guess that the game of the night really is going to be the Houston Rockets taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, 2 up-and-coming teams in the West Coast, playing some great basketball. Memphis struggled a little bit here on this recent road trip, but they are at home. I've seen nothing but money come their way today here. Now, Tom, 5.5. The total pretty high for a Houston Rockets game, but how are you looking at this one?
Yeah, the total came down just a touch. It was 238 this morning. I'm still expecting a good amount of pace. Both teams are in the top 10 league in pace. I specifically like Fred VanVleet for 6+ assists. And it's always important to note when you're looking at some of these prop markets, especially in basketball. If you look at over 5.5 assists, at least earlier today, it was at -142. But if he hits the over on that, which means he has 6 assists. But if you look at the 6+ assist market, they were staying at -135. So we have to be able to find that difference. It's literally the same bet on FanDuel. They just give you better odds for something different, for the exact same thing in a different spot. So always make sure to find those. I'm expecting some points tonight. Again, 238 came down a little bit. We see the Grizzlies, they're allowing 8.2 assists per game to opposing point guards. We see VanVleet. He's not getting to this number on an every single night basis. Obviously, their offense is loaded. There's a ton of different options, a ton of different players that are distributing and scoring the ball. But he's been over this mark in 7 out of 13 times. I like this spot for some scoring. I like VanVleet to bring that consistency.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to figure out what the ceiling is for both these teams. Are one of these the dark horses coming out of the West that can challenge OKC? Or is this the future of the Western Conference with the Lakers probably going to the wayside here, and Dallas can't stay healthy? So, what is the ceiling for Houston and Memphis, do you think, this year?
I have a higher expectation for Houston, and the way I've been kind of thinking about is like Houston is this year's OKC, right? Like we saw OKC have that first step last year, and they went through the playoffs. They they got to earn their battle scars, and they did so. And now they're in a spot like, okay, we know what we're capable of. We have that first step into the playoffs. Now we can actually take the next step. And I think that's what Houston is going through. They were, right at the edge of the play-in last year. They didn't make it. This year they made the moves. They have good coaching with Ime Udoka there. Like they have the pieces set up. I think they're going to make a splash at the deadline, and that will really put them over the top to take that first step. Whether they get past Denver, whether they get past OKC is a different story. But I do view them as that. And this game just went off the board for me. So maybe there's some late-breaking news that we would love to see for Houston and Memphis. Ja Morant is now listed as doubtful, so we are reacting to this in live time.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Ja Morant, shocker. You never know exactly what you're going to get. Downgraded to unlikely to play here against Houston. But let's be honest. We've seen this Memphis team capable of dropping 130 and 40 on teams without him on the court. It just means that I'd probably look at Desmond Bane now and look at his points prop and think that maybe it's probably a little undervalued. It is the Rockets, I believe, their 4th game in 6 nights on the road here. So this is a rough, just a terrible spot for Houston, but they're going to have to score, I think, even without Ja Morant on the court, to your point. I think they're going to have to score some points here in order to keep this one close and have a chance to steal one. Amen Thompson's another guy on the Houston Rockets that has been phenomenal over the last month. Weren't sure, he dealt with some injuries early on too, but I just watched them drop 33 on the Celtics on Monday night. And I'm going, wow, they have got, they can lock you down on defense, and they are more than capable of, shooting you out of the gym here. I like him as well as VanVleet.
Right. And, from a night-to-night basis, they have so many options. It can make the Rockets a little bit tough from a prop perspective with VanVleet, Jalen Green, Thompson, like you said, Alperen Şengün. Dillon Brooks, he is going up against his former team. Like, I think he brings a little bit of that edge where he doesn't have to be a primary player. It felt like at times he had to do that in Memphis, but he doesn't have to do that with Houston. And he's been to the playoffs. Hasn't been the best performances from him in the playoffs over the course of his career, but that's something that they need on the team. Like every team needs that player to be a role veteran player who's again, been through it in the playoffs. So, tonight, if Ja Morant does end up getting ruled out because he's now listed doubtful, like you said, it should be a big Desmond Bane night. Jaren Jackson Jr. should continue to do his thing as well, putting up points and boards.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to play this here tonight. I am also seeing Darius Garland has been upgraded to playing tonight against the Atlanta Hawks here. But how much higher could that number get? It's already 11, right? 10.5, 11 now, Tom. He didn't play last night, right? So we know that There was some question marks with the depth for the Cavs, but they're home, and Atlanta can't seem to get out of the way. But look at that money line price. I mean, we're talking nearly a $5 favorite of Cavs. They're basically saying Atlanta shouldn't show up, and that's usually when you probably want to back Atlanta, no?
Right, and a lot of this comes down to, like, we all agree that the Cavs are a better team, but at a certain point, like, the risk is not worth the potential, money that you're going to be getting back, whatever it might be. Atlanta, they just lost Jalen Johnson for the year, so, like, their depth is, like, super thin at this point, and someone else is going to have to do some work. So, like, if Onyeka Okongwu gets into foul trouble, we're just going to see the boards pile up for the Cavs. So there is a certain point where you can bet on the Hawks just because the Cavs are not worth that lay on the money line or even into some type of parlay, but it is getting late early for the Hawks this season.
Oh, so true, man. My goodness. Guess Quinn Snyder just not getting it done like they thought he might there in Atlanta here. All right, we got a couple of other games coming up here tonight on the hardwood. It just feels like rinse and repeat, fade Washington until further notice here. We'll get Tom's thoughts on that. Plus, we'll take a look at a couple of the NHL games here tonight with a couple of props that he has got locked and loaded for us. So come back, join us here. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP in the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
They have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Tom Vecchio here as we're getting ready for a 5-game slate in the association. But we do have some NHL action here tonight and a couple of props we're going to get into here with you, Tom. But I think it's gut check time for the Lakers. What do you think? I mean, getting blown out by the Sixers backups, not a good look in any way, shape, or form. But the good news is they're playing the Wizards, and they're not laying double digits. Even the Lakers should be able to win by double digits tonight, no?
They should. But like you were saying in the segment right before, I hopped on, it's like someone else has to step up and do something for the Lakers. Obviously, you expect a lot of that to come from Austin Reeves. Hachimura in the mix? Like, is Dalton connect? Is he can finally see like a solid amount of playing time, a solid amount of field goal attempts on a nightly basis? Like, they drafted him for a reason. Like, this is the time, like you said, a gut check. Like, they have to figure out what they can do on offense and defense without Anthony Davis there, without a player that can give you 30 and 15 a night. Like, that production has to be filled by someone. So I guess it's at a point where you just have to throw anything against the wall and see what sticks. And I think it's going to be a combination of maybe LeBron taking a half a step back. And I know that sounds a little weird. Like, you think, oh, he has to do more production at the time than Anthony Davis is out. But they actually have to see what else they have on the roster instead of having just two players carry them on a nightly basis.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. And the trade deadline is coming. It'll be interesting if they think they can pull a rabbit out of that hat here. Let's switch over to the ice here. You got a couple of props for us tonight. Yeah. We'll start with the Islanders at the Flyers tonight. Short price for the Islanders. 5.5 was the total. What are you looking at here?
Let's just keep it simple with shots on goal. And, if a lot of people don't bet hockey, I would equate shots on goal to something like total bases in MLB. It's just like the thing we trust the player to do for the most part. It's not like an RBI or a home run prop where you're taking these big swings at plus money. We're just looking for some shots on goal. So let's go to Bo Horvat from the Islanders. Over 2.5 shots on goals, plus 100. He's their top line center. He's on the first power play. Great matchup going up against Philadelphia. The Islanders actually been turning up their offense since the start of January. They're just pushing the pace on offense more. He comes on 32 shots on goal over the last 10 games. He's been over this mark in 9 out of 10 games in January. Super simple with Bo Horvat.
Islanders have won 5 straight, folks, giving up 2 goals or less in all 5. In fact, 2 goals or less in 8 of their last 9. So they have been locking it down for sure. And then you got one with the Vegas Knights here tonight. Another shots on goal prop. What are you looking at?
Again, super simple. Pavel Dorofeev, not a super household name when it comes to hockey, but he actually has the second most shots on goal on the Vegas Golden Knights. Actually leads them in goals. He has more goals than Jack Eichel, over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 135. They're going up against Columbus. Since the start of January, Columbus, they've allowed the third most total shot attempts per 6 minutes in 5v5 situations. He's had at least 2 shots on goal in 13 of his last 14 games. He's live to hit this every single night. It's just where the line should be. It's a little bit of juice at minus 135 or minus 130, wherever you may have gotten it, but it is the right play against a bad defense in Columbus.
It is not a good defense at all here. All right, we got a big game coming up in the NFL. One more left, Tom. We got plenty of time to talk about this game. Don't know that we're going to get a whole lot of movement one way or the other with the spread, but what are some of your initial thoughts with this game? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so on Sunday night after the championship games, when I was doing the recap show, up until 11 p.m., I was running through the props and reacting them to live time just because that's right when they were posted. So, I talked about Patrick Mahomes over 35.5 passing attempts. That number has moved to 36. Outside of the 2 playoff games, he was over this number in 9 of 10 games to end the regular season. Again, when the ball, when rubber meets the road in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, the ball is going to be in his hands. I also like Isaiah Pacheco under 6.5 rushing attempts. That was sitting at minus 118. That number had moved to minus 150. It's now down to 5.5 attempts. So that's a spot I like. I don't mind taking a shot on Dallas Goedert for over on receiving yards or a touchdown prop for Goedert, which was plus 320 or so. The Chiefs were very, very bad against specifically tight ends in the receiving game this season. So you can certainly look there. And then when push comes to shove, I'll probably be on DeAndre Hopkins as well for a touchdown. I just think Mahomes will be looking to that veteran pass catcher in the end zone, in the red zone, once they get there.
Interesting, too. We had some news today earlier with the Eagles and Brandon Graham. Looks like he could very well be back for him as that practice window has opened up. He had knocked him out a little bit earlier, and woo, look at that. That's all of a sudden a great defense just got a little bit better heading into that game against Patrick Mahomes. They're going to need all the help they can get. Tom Vecchio, see you Saturday for In-Game Live as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time. And I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because, he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP in the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
They have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in GameTime Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we've got plenty going on here tonight as we all get ready for the calm before the storm, as we will have wall-to-wall coverage live from Radio Row here on the SportsGrid Network beginning on Monday in New Orleans as we get ready for, well, a pretty big game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles here, as all next week should be an awful lot of fun. Both these teams feel like it wasn't that long ago where we did, well, just this, in fact, where Kansas City and Eagles, two of the best teams in the NFL, certainly had been offensively. Not so much this year, even though they have same coaches. Same quarterbacks, much different approach to how they went about their business this go around as opposed to 3 years ago when they went head to head. And of course, Jalen Hurts coming up just a little bit short there, like most other people have against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. They will have, of course, an opportunity to exact a little revenge there. The only problem with that is when you start looking at some of these trends and what we have seen over time is that these repeat matchups, and by the way, this is only the second time, I believe, in NFL history where the same teams are meeting in the Super Bowl a second go-around within a 3-year stretch. The only other time it happened was back in 1992 and 93, and that was the Bills and the Cowboys. And, well, yeah, that didn't work out all that well for the Bills then either. But we also know how hard it is to beat Patrick Mahomes in a big, big way. I mean, this guy in neutral site games or home games in January and February, I am showing 16-2 straight up. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And in fact, the only two teams or quarterbacks to have beaten him were Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. He's 44-6 straight up in this exact same spot in November or later. So at home or in neutral site games, basically from November through the Super Bowls, very hard to beat. 8-0 straight up and against the number. when he as either a small favorite of less than a field goal. He is very, very tough to beat. And extended rest here also is another spot that Mahomes has excelled, and so does Andy Reid, right? We know that. Coaching matters. And also Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni. This will be the 5th head coach rematch in Super Bowl all time, right? The head coach who won the first meeting straight up. Want to take a guess in the 5 previous times or 4 previous times how that worked out? Yeah, so the head coach that won the first go-around, guess what? Ended up winning the second go-around. And by the way, one of those head coaching matchups for a rematch was Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan last year. And we all know how that worked out for Kyle Shanahan. So there are a whole lot of trends here that are not looking great for the Philadelphia Eagles, including one final one, which I thought was crazy, was the fact that the Eagles scored 55 points in that conference championship game against Washington over the weekend. That is the most in the conference championship round in NFL history. Only 3 teams have scored more than 45 points in the conference championship. You got to go back to the 1990-91 Bills. Guess who they lost to in the Super Bowl? The Giants. We'll just lay that out there. Also, the 2015-16 Panthers also dropped more than 45 points in that conference championship game. And what happened to them? Yeah, they lost also in the big game. So that leaves us now the Eagles, another trend, dropping the single most points in a conference championship game in the history of the NFL. What will their fate be? In fact, teams to score 40 or more points in conference championship games, well, they're just 3-7 straight up in the big game in the following couple of weeks. So not great. Vic Fangio, by the way, has also faced Patrick Mahomes 8 times in his career. Now, you'll recall Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was with the Broncos and, of course, with the Dolphins. And he has faced Kansas City 8 times and Patrick Mahomes. And, well, Vic Fangio defenses are 0-8 straight up. They are 2-6 against the number, but they're 0-8 straight up. So as good as Vic Fangio is, as good as his defenses have been, he has had no answer for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the offense of the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a 64% completion percentage. Yikes. So when I tell you the trends are not looking up for the Philadelphia Eagles, yeah, I'm telling you, they're not looking up. But what does that mean? Does that mean that you shouldn't bet them? Absolutely not, because quite honestly, those trends have really nothing to do with what is going to happen in a couple of weeks. But it is interesting to note that it could just be the same old coming up here in this game. And not to mention the one thing that we didn't talk about is that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, with all the accolades and all they have accomplished, they are looking to do something that has never been done in the history of the NFL. And that is win back-to-back Super Bowls. Never been done. And the NFL been playing a long time and has had some great teams. And you can go back to the Steelers in the 70s, the Cowboys, the 49er teams. We have had some amazing dynasties, but not even the GOAT, Tom Brady, was able to pull off what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have a chance of doing in this game. So there is a lot of history riding and a lot of narratives riding in this game. But there's also a lot of ways, I think, to be able to cash some tickets, because depending on how you think this game plays out, and I don't care who wins, I think the prop betting market is going to be absolutely on fire here. I think there is a lot of ways to correlate what's going to happen here for Kansas City offensively. I think there's going to be a lot to correlate with what's going to happen for Philadelphia offensively here. The good news is it does sound like both teams are getting some players back here as they've been allowed to practice. We told you about Brandon Graham back for the Philadelphia Eagles, now back at practice. I believe Sky Moore also has now allowed to get back into the action for the Kansas City Chiefs. So some more weapons for Kansas City, more defensive help for the Philadelphia Eagles. Needless to say, there is a lot that can happen here over the next 10 days or so before we get to the big game in New Orleans. And we'll talk plenty about the different props and the way to go about that all week long here on the SportsGrid Network. And again, make sure you join us all next week live from Radio Row here, as we'll have plenty of live content talking to those on the ground, the boots on the ground in New Orleans. Should be a great time. It is each and every year, of course, culminating into one big show there, one big final in-game live pro football coming to you on that Sunday night. So we got a lot to be excited about here at SportsGrid. We're certainly excited that you guys are going to be here with us. And in the meantime, we got plenty of action on the ice tonight. We're going to talk a lot about it as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP of the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP of the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it. Right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
You know, they have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Thursday as we get ready to close out January. We're getting ready to welcome in February, and it's getting good, certainly in the NHL. We got a loaded slate here tonight, 10 games on tap, puck dropping just at the top of the hour. So no better person to talk to here about this card tonight than the one and only Joe Madden in the house. And Joe, welcome in as we get ready for these games here tonight. And I think we got a couple of really good ones right off the bat. Let's start with the Islanders, who is it me, or have they finally figured out how to not only play defense but win some games? They're not giving up more than 1 or 2 goals a game. They seem to, and I'm happy because you and I have made fun of our good friend George Kurtz on this network for a long time. But I think he might finally have something to be excited about. They're taking on the Flyers tonight. Are you excited about them?
Yeah, I really am. I think they're going to be able to limit them, and I think George has something exciting to look forward to for sure. This Islanders team has won their last 5, and while we've seen special teams really have those struggles, they've been turning things around a little bit out there, and we look at Sorokin, and we look at how strong Sorokin is versus the Flyers, and I do think they're in for their 6th win tonight. Sorokin versus the Flyers in his career has a 1.64 goals against average, a 944 save percentage, so he should be able to stand tall between the pipes. And then the killer here for the Philadelphia Flyers tonight, even though they're at home, they're off an overtime back-to-back game. Actually, it wasn't an overtime game, but it was a back-to-back tonight here. And this is a place they've absolutely struggled, losing their last 17 games on the second night of a back-to-back at home. So I cannot touch the Flyers here. I think they're going to struggle to put that puck in the back of the net. Sorokin could be in for a shutout. The last time I said that, it was against Sorokin. But tonight, the Flyers team total under 2.5. We're getting plus money, Joe, at plus 108.
I love that. Also, coming up top of the hour, Washington taking on Ottawa. Thompson and Forsberg in net. 5.5 is a total. It's kind of a pick 'em price here, Joe. How do you approaching the Ottawa Senators tonight?
Yeah, I expected the Capitals to actually be a favorite in this one and a heavier favorite than the Ottawa Senators. Even though the Sens are at home, this team has won their last 2 and they're playing really strong defensively. But you look at goaltending and you look at defense here for the Washington Capitals, and they've been lights out. I'm kind of nervous with this total because Forsberg in net tonight for the Ottawa Senators. I do think we could see a situation where the Capitals push this one to the over. So instead of looking at the Washington Capitals and the Senators full game to the under, I'm going to look at the Ottawa Senators. I think their team total is exactly where you want to look. Again, we're getting a 2.5. Again, we're getting that at plus 108 for the Ottawa Senators to the under. And I really think they could win this 2-1, or the Washington Capitals could win this 2-1, or, a 4-2 style game. And then we still see the Ottawa Senators stay under that total, Joe.
I think they met back on the 16th, I believe, right earlier, a couple of weeks ago. That was 1-0 in overtime. So I'm with you here. I may even dabble a little bit in the first period under 1.5 and that one. What are we doing with Hellebuck here? Winnipeg taking on Boston tonight. Another interesting matchup and an interesting price. 5.5 is a total is what I'm seeing here.
This game feels kind of trappy, right? You look at the Winnipeg Jets, and why are they such a slight favorite in this one? With Connor Hellebuck in net, he has been absolutely outstanding. 3rd best goaltender right now in the league versus Boston with Korpisalo tonight. Boston is lacking on their kill, and we know top power play here for the Winnipeg Jets. But when we start looking at Winnipeg rolling into Boston, how they've done versus Boston, it's not good. They're only 2-7 in the last 9 meetings and 5-23 and 1 in the last 29 meetings in Boston. So for me, it's kind of like it's a hard place to take Winnipeg in any capacity unless it's a player prop here, because we could see Boston sneak out the win. I just don't want to lay the juice here with the Winnipeg Jets. Mark Scheifele has 29 goals on the season. Milestone alert for him tonight for goal number 30. I do think he gets it, but what I also like is the power play point. The power play point for Mark Scheifele is coming in at plus 305, and with how weak the kill is here for Boston, that power play is going to click tonight. So Mark Scheifele for the power play point for all of that plus money. And then if you want to take him for the goal outside of that, the goal should hit as well.
All right, I got to ask you because it's I think it's hilarious, but we've got Carolina, a $4 or $5 favorite once again. I mean, my goodness, really against Chicago. Now, granted, but we've already talked about it. A lot of ways to cash tickets with Chicago this year. They have pulled rabbits out of their hat. What are we getting with Carolina and the Blackhawks tonight?
Yeah, they absolutely have, but I'm super excited for some players in this one. I think this is a player pop game all day for Carolina. And then I just want to stay off it otherwise. I think we could see the Carolina Hurricanes win the first period on that puck line, laying a half a goal. It's minus 112. So you're not getting great value there because they're almost like a 450 favorite. It's crazy to what you're going to get. The Chicago Blackhawks plus 2.5. I think that is still like, it's juicy, but it's within range of what they can do. But when we look at this game, you got to look at the storyline. Taylor Hall first. He was involved in the trade. Taylor Hall now with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's facing his team that he was just on last week. He was so vocal about really wanting to stay with the Chicago Blackhawks, but he knew it was a business and that he would probably be moving on, and he was involved in that trade. So Taylor Hall to get a goal versus his former team, plus 280, I think, sign me up all day. And then Mikko Rantanen, the main player of that trade. This will be his first time, and same with Taylor Hall, as a Carolina Hurricane on Canes ice. So I do think you look for both of these players to step up. Mikko Rantanen, it's interesting. His anytime goal was minus 105. It's gone up to plus 130. So you are getting value. I'm not sure why. We've got the value as the day goes on because it normally moves in the opposite direction, Joe. So that is a little concerning there, but I like him for the 2+ points. And he's on that top line with Sebastian Aho. So if you look at Sebastian Aho and Mikko Rantanen for 2+ points, parlay them together, or you're in the money tonight if it cashes. And one's going to get the goal, one's going to get the assist. And I think that top line scores more than once.
I love that. All right, we got a couple other games, Joe. When we get back, want to talk to you about Red Wings and Oilers. Certainly interesting. Also, maybe some opportunities in your Calgary Flames game as they take on Anaheim, and there is no doubt you're going to have something to say about that game, and we'll hear as we get back as Game Time Decisions continues on the Grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Madden back in the hot seat with us here as we make our way through a 10-game slate on the ice tonight. Joe, some great games, some great opportunities. Let's turn to Edmonton and Detroit. Interesting game, I think, here. It is one of the higher totals that I'm seeing on the board. I think it's up to 6.5. What are we thinking here? Goals, and more goals, or what are you approaching it with?
I'm kind of being cautious with the full game total, Joe. We know sometimes these teams can play that strong defensive hockey. Now, while I don't trust Skinner completely 100% and Edmonton to play in a lower scoring game, I do look at them to come out in the first period, put up those goals, and then try to lock down defensively. They're not a team that we normally see a really strong lockdown in the first period. They like to get up on teams, but we also see a Detroit team that likes to do the same. They're strong in that first period. We've been seeing both teams having success. Cam Talbot versus Skinner in this one. Now, the last time these teams matched up, it was a 3-2 win for the Edmonton Oilers back in October, and I could see it playing out similar, even if we get 2 goals in the first period. So I'm going to stay off the full game. I'm going to look at both teams to score in the first period. Normally, this is right around plus 180. The books are expecting both teams to score because it's down to plus 168. I still think there's enough value to look at both of these teams because we know we have playmakers across the board, playmakers that can score and score quick. I wouldn't be shocked if Edmonton put up 2 goals, the Red Wings put up 1. And then we saw either the second or the third period kind of go scoreless for the majority of them as they locked down. But I do think first period, both teams to score, easiest way to take this game.
I love it. All right, talk to me about your Calgary Flames tonight, taking on, of course, those pesky Anaheim Ducks. Are we thinking goals here or maybe no goals here?
Ooh, I think there's a lack of goals for the Anaheim Ducks. And we look at the Ducks, they're coming off winning their last 3. They've been playing fantastic out there. They got the win versus the Kraken on Tuesday, 6-4. So lighting the lamp, we always know we can turn to Troy Terry to light the lamp for the Anaheim Ducks. But looking at Dustin Wolf in goal today for the Calgary Flames, he has been confirmed, and he is plus 1,100, Joe, right now to win the Calder Trophy for the top rookie. And I tell you, he is such a strong goaltender in net for the Calgary Flames. He's a go-to, not Dan Vladar. When we see Dustin Wolf in net, Calgary has such a stronger chance of getting the win because he's got a 2.56 goals against average, a 915 save percentage. He's lights out between the pipes, and I love his ability to really limit the Anaheim Ducks in this game today. I'm going to take the Ducks team total under 2.5. We're going to have to lay juice at minus 116, but I do think it's a really strong way to go. The last time these teams matched up, Calgary got the 3-2 win in OT in Anaheim. They won 5 of the last 6. I think they get the win today, and Dustin Wolf stands nice and tall between the pipes. So the Ducks team total under 2.5. The full game I would stay off of because John Gibson is confirmed for the Anaheim Ducks. Calgary could light the lamp a couple more times and needed to stay under that total.
So, yeah, the one thing you haven't given me here is a big dog tonight, Joe, and I think one is lurking here maybe in Vegas. What are we doing here tonight?
Okay, so this is going to be a hard pill to swallow because the Columbus Blue Jackets are not having the best time on the road this season, but they're taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, who I don't like the spot that they're in. They are off a loss, and they are at home in the Fortress. Normally a bet-on spot, but when we look ahead, they've got a 4-game road trip kicking off on Sunday versus the New York Rangers, and they got Samsonov in net tonight. Columbus has been pesky, and they have been able to pull out some wins. Elvis in goal for them tonight. They're off a win in overtime versus the LA Kings. I think it's worth a shot on Columbus or nothing in this bet. I'm going to sprinkle Columbus straight up on that money line. It's coming in at plus 230, Joe.
I like it, but you're not done there because we got another late night dog in Seattle tonight, right at home, taking on the San Jose Sharks. Might be go sharking here. What are we doing?
We're definitely going sharking here. Look at that value on the Sharks at plus 164. This is a team that just got the win versus the Pittsburgh Penguins in a lower scoring game. They proved they could play that lower scoring game. I don't know why the Krakens are the favorite, especially at this price here at home. This team has been struggling all season. Jared McCann feels like the only player that can score those goals for them. And the Sharks have Celebrini, Tyler Toffoli, Will Smith. They got playmakers up and down. They're young, they're scrappy, and they never say die in these games, Joe. So give me the Sharks sprinkled on the money line. I love the dogs today in these 2 late games.
See, now you're going to make me money line parlay both Columbus and San
Come on, do it,
Jose, Joe, and then take the weekend off is the way we're going to work it out. Joe Madden, always a pleasure. Thank you so very much for bestowing some of that NHL knowledge on us. We got another hour of Game Time Decisions together. Come back and join us on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Another hour together as we've got plenty of games getting ready to tip off here in college hoops. We got 5 games in the NBA, a couple of early games also getting ready to tip off. And from now until next Sunday, plenty of talk about the big game in New Orleans between the Chiefs and the Eagles. But let us not forget, there is plenty of tickets to be cashed at AT&T Pebble Beach, and nobody knows that better than our good friend Brady Cannon in the house. Brady, we talked to you last night about this tournament. We were excited because we had, some of the classics back. We were going to get to see Rory, right, for the first time. Scotty Scheffler was going to make his season debut. Jordan Spieth. So all in all, it turns out, and usually I'm used to seeing Russell Henley on Sunday putt his way into the top 10, top 20, but he putted his way right to the top of the leaderboard here today at 8 under. What did you see here today at Pebble Beach?
Well, you know what? It was a great opening round. The weather was calm. There wasn't a whole lot of wind out there. It was a little bit chilly, but guys were able to score, and they were able to hit some greens and, a calm, nice opening round of golf. It is supposed to get a little bit more difficult on Friday. They were talking about a lot of wind on the broadcast. This is eerily similar to what we saw last week at Torrey Pines. You had, the Wednesday start, guys went out, Oberg shot 9 under, and then the wind went crazy on Thursday, and, the golf tournament turned on its head. They're talking about, 15, 25 mile an hour gusts, and I've checked 3 different cities. I've checked Pacific Grove, Pebble Beach, and Carmel. None of them say wind over 10 miles an hour. I don't know what's going on here. I would do some more research on that before you dive in if you're going to make some live wagers here, but I'm not seeing any more wind coming tomorrow or really throughout the weekend. I did see a slight chance of rain, but I think the scoring's going to continue as far as I can tell here, Joe. And, Russell Henley, really exceptional the start he got off to. An 8 under par round on the harder golf course. This is also like what we had last week at Torrey Pines. We had the South course, the harder track, and then everybody plays one round on the North course, the easier course. Well, Spyglass Hill is playing about a shot and a half more difficult than Pebble Beach. Everybody will play one round at Spyglass. They'll play 3 rounds at Pebble. Well, Russell Henley, he got to the lead at 8 under par on the harder golf course. So that's why he's trading at a pretty low price. He's at 9 under. Who knows what he's going to do on Friday? Victor Hovland was my long shot. You remember, this guy has not been in good form. I mean, his press conference, he was saying, I really suck right now. He wasn't too bad today. He got it to 7 under, but he was on Pebble. So he'll play the harder course tomorrow. He's at 20-1 to win this thing. A lot different than where he was pre-tournament, around 60-1. But just keep that in mind. Scotty and Rory, by the way, Rory, a hole-in-one, the Irish duo of Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry both made an ace today. And they bought pizza and beer for the media tent. Our buddy Keith Stewart tweeted out a picture of a bucket full of beer and pizzas, courtesy of Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry for their hole-in-ones today. But Rory and Scotty both played on the more difficult Spyglass Hill. Only about a shot and a half, but more difficult. So they'll go to Pebble on Friday, and they both went pretty well today. Scotty was 5 under, Rory was 6 under. Scotty 3 shots off the lead, Joe, and he's still the tournament favorite at 4-1.
Yeah, and listen, it was just good to see him out there. And let's face it, until Sunday comes, Brady, he is always going to have a shot at winning this thing, which is kind of crazy. But you're right. It's been an absolute fantastic start to the tournament. But it feels like this is one where you really need to have a pretty good understanding of where that win comes into play, because 8 under, we might not be getting 8 unders and 7 unders over the next couple of days. And I think that's going to be pretty important, no?
No, you're exactly right. I would not jump into the live market at this point because there's just too many unknowns for me. And like I said, it's eerily similar to last week. It's the same thing. I didn't see any wind in the forecast for day 2 at Torrey Pines. And all of a sudden, the balls were oscillating on the greens. I mean, it was blowing like crazy out there. And I'm not seeing anything like that in the forecast here again, but they're talking about it on the broadcast. So not knowing that, and then you have the differences in the 2 courses, about a shot and a half, 2 strokes different between Spyglass Hill and Pebble. I want to see what happens tomorrow. I'd like to see them get 36 holes under their belt before I dive back in. But, Sepp Straka is another guy that went low on Spyglass Hill today, coming off of a win a couple weeks ago at the Amex. Rasmus Højgaard, he was a popular pick this week, typically a European tour guy, but he got a lot of attention this week. He went low today, starting on the harder golf course, as did Justin Thomas, Maverick McNeely, one of my guys, and Gary Woodland. Hey, U.S. Open winner here at Pebble Beach in 2019, shot 4 under on the harder golf course today. So he's at 110-1 right now. I mean, if you're going to get involved and you want to just take a flyer, maybe Gary Woodland's the guy.
Are you going to bet against Justin Rose?
I know.
There's a lot.
He won here a couple years ago. He's 70-1.
There are guys that are very familiar with this golf course that are playing, actually are in really good form. I mean, there's no reason for JT not to play well, have a chance to win this thing on Sunday. But you got to be able to see it. And you're right. Who's been better than Sepp Straka over to start the season? So, boy, I got to tell you, there's a lot of big names, though. What wins it, though, do you think? What's the number?
The number at the Westgate Superbook, our friends over there, hung 19.5. And the way this thing was going today, I said, boy, it's going to fly over that, but I don't know. If this wind shows up, then who knows? But I'm just not seeing it in the forecast. 19's probably a pretty good number. If it's going to level off a little bit tomorrow, maybe 19's a really good number. I trust Jeff Sherman over there. But, I tell you, it's great to see this, isn't it, Joe? I mean, we've got Rory, we got Scotty, you got JT, and everybody's live. I mean, there's only 80 guys in the field, and I would say 50 of them still got a shot. I mean, the guys at 3 under par are only 5 shots off the lead, and they're in 30, I mean, there's probably 50 guys within 5 shots of the lead, and they're all basically stars on tour. So looks like we got a good one on our hands.
We do. I mean, that figures. So heading into Saturday, we're figuring 12 or 13 would most likely be the leader, which would put guys anything less than 8? Probably not worth taking a flyer on.
Yeah. I mean, when you head into the final day, I never like to be more than 4 shots off the lead on the final day. Yeah. And everybody's going to be on Pebble, which is a little bit easier. Okay. And again, the forecast is calling for very benign conditions. And you know how it is. If we have a little bit of a birdie fest, it's extremely hard to catch the leaders because they're likely to not make mistakes. So, if you got a guy that's 2 or 3 shots out in front on Sunday, they're probably going to go on to win it.
Yeah, there will be some opportunities to jump in, but let's get past tomorrow first and see what we've got. Brady Cannon, we'll talk to you again tomorrow on Game Time Decisions. We'll have all the latest from Pebble Beach. We'll have more when Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. We welcome back in our good friend Brady Cannon here as we are getting ready, of course, for a great weekend at Pebble Beach. The PGA Tour in full effect. I mean, the Masters will be here before we know it, but when you got the likes of Rory and Scotty Scheffler and company, there are some big names atop that Pebble Beach leaderboard. There are also plenty of opportunities coming up for the big game here, Brady, in New Orleans. And, of course, SportsGrid will be on site, Radio Row, beginning on Monday all week long. We'll have boots on the ground, plenty happening. But in your neck of the woods, there's a pretty big event here tonight as well. And it's kind of a one of those situations, Brady, where we wait for it every year. And it's that old, the release of all of the props happen here in Las Vegas. It's original to Vegas. It's happens every year. Guys line up around the corner. You'll be there tonight here for once it is released. And then, boy, the windows are active tonight, are they not?
Yeah, it's a great time, and it goes back to a guy I know you're familiar with, a good friend of mine, Jay Cornegay, who just recently retired as the vice president of the Race and Sports Book at the Superbook. He really almost created the prop bet, Joe. I believe he truly is responsible for the cross-sport prop bet. You know, like which will be a higher number, goals scored by Sidney Crosby or touchdown passes by Patrick Mahomes, that type of thing. I think Jay actually created that. But back when he was at the Imperial Palace, he really made the prop bets popular for the Super Bowl. And now, of course, everybody does them. But the Westgate will release what I believe is just an absolute book of about probably 500 different prop bets at, I believe, 7 p.m. Pacific tonight. Media will be on hand. Everybody will be covering it. It's really one of the signature events that the Superbook throws year in and year out. And you're right. They will be lined up out the door and around the corner, all the sharp guys in town, ready to make their bets. Rufus Peabody, Steve Fezzik, all those guys have been famous for, getting there early and often for these prop bets. And I believe what they allow you to do is a couple $1,000s, and they allow you to bet, I think, up to 2 or 3 props. And then you got to go to the back of the line, and guys will be there all night. Just, make a couple bets, go to the back of the line and do this trick 3 or 4 different times through. And trying to get that best number. And, if you're not going to go down there and get in line and do that type of exercise, you probably want to get right after it tomorrow morning or something like that. You want to bet, let's say you want to bet overs and yes early, and you want to bet unders and no late. So let these guys move that number, like crazy for the next couple of days. And then maybe you go right before kickoff on Sunday or Saturday night or something like that, and go the other way after that number's been kicked the other way in one direction so drastically. So it's a good time. A lot of celebrity type sports bettors down there at the Westgate Superbook tonight. And it kind of feels like it's the beginning of Super Bowl week here in Las Vegas when that party kicks off.
Yeah, it is always so much fun there. I can tell you right off the bat, Brad, I mean, one of the ones that I bet every year, it's been one of the more profitable props, is the shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards. And I don't care what it is, it's always juiced. And to your point, for those of you at home listening, if you're going to be playing props, if you're going to be looking at overs, bet them early. If you're going to be looking at unders, bet them late. Wait until the numbers get out of control. But this one has hit 24 of the last 35, I believe, and under 7 of the last 9. It feels like if there's any 2 teams that can handle shortest touchdown under a yard and a half, it's going to be these 2 teams that will push their way into the end zone from the 1-yard line here.
Yeah, the tush push. I mean, it doesn't apply to any more team than the Philadelphia Eagles, does it? No, I think that would be an absolute no-brainer, and you're probably going to see that price through the roof here pretty quick. I mean, who knows? Is it already minus 150? It might become minus 250 here pretty soon because it feels like that's a foregone conclusion. But you know what? I would probably still have to get involved. The other one that always looks sideways, but it happens more than you realize, is will there be a score, at least 3 times? Will one team score at least 3 times in a row? Without the other team interrupting. Will one team score, and that counts halftime too. So, if a team scores to end the second quarter and then they come back and they score again first in the third and then score again. And usually the no on that is, I want to say, around plus 350. And you're like, oh my gosh, give me that. They're not going to score 3 times in a row. It happens more often than not. The yes is typically about minus 170. So that's another one that usually happens, just like the short touchdown, like you're saying, Joe. Another one that you're going to have to pay some juice on that rarely ever happens in the Super Bowl is no overtime. Will there be overtime? The no is going to be a heavy favorite. And that's the other thing about prop bets, that the audience needs to understand. Sometimes you have to lay the wood. I mean, there's a reason it's a big price, because usually it comes true.
Yep. Yeah. And to that point here, I think, will there be a 2-point conversion? Successful and attempted. Those are good ones. And I got to tell you, with this one, because I do happen to think the defenses are going to be up to par here in this one. Kicking props pretty good, too. I have the longest field goal made under 47.5 yards in this one here. It feels like both these teams, given the chance of trying a 55, 50-yarder or going for it on 4th down, Brady, it feels like both of these teams will roll the dice and go for it more often than not.
Especially the Eagles, because, Jason Elliott, their kicker, has had some struggles in the postseason. Now, you might get some field goals out of the Kansas City Chiefs. That they haven't looked like it as of late, but through the regular season, they were not great in the red zone. They settled for a lot of field goals, did Harrison Butker. So we'll see about that, but maybe that leads you to the first score of the game will be a field goal.
Yeah, I agree. Still like that first half under as well. That's where I'm looking. Brady, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Enjoy the prop night, my man. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. A very happy Thursday to you as we're excited. Plenty of action on the hardwood here tonight, not to mention the NHL. And now would be a pretty good time to talk to our good friends Tom Vecchio and Joe Madden, who no doubt have a Sports Millions pick'em on tap here tonight. What do you got for us?
Happy Thursday, everyone. It's time to jump into some Sports Millions pick'ems. Now, Tom, we've got an absolutely loaded day out there on the ice today. Let's look at something that you're liking out there.
Yeah, huge slate of games today. A lot of teams are hot right now. Let's turn to one of those teams that's streaking right now. The New York Islanders, their top line center, Bo Horvat, higher than 2.5 shots on goal. I like this matchup going up against Philadelphia. He has 32 shots on goal over his last 10 games. He's been over this 2.5 mark in 9 of the 11 games this month. They are peaking. He is peaking. He's on that power play. I love the fact that the Flyers are on a back-to-back. It's all good for Horvat and the Islanders tonight. I think he keeps it rolling with higher than 2.5.
Great way to go with that one. And I'm going to turn to the matchup here between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Carolina Hurricanes. We know the Canes were involved in that huge trade, and I'm going to look here at Sebastian Aho. He'll now have Mikko Rantanen, who was with Colorado, on that top line with him, and I think that just equals straight fire. We look at Sebastian Aho already on the season, and he's been such a playmaker out there. I'm going to lock him in on higher than 0.5 point here for the Carolina Hurricanes. We look at him in the last 3 meetings versus the Chicago Blackhawks. He's been able to put up a point at least in all 3 of those, multiple points in 2. So I do think Sebastian Aho with Mikko Rantanen on that top line, definitely someone you want to look at tonight higher than 0.5 point, Tom.
Points from Carolina as they'll have that first home game with Rantanen in the line, or third game overall that he's in the line, but the first home game, I think they cruise tonight.
They absolutely should, you guys. Make sure you join us back here tomorrow for some more Sports Millions pick'ems. We'll be focusing on the NBA.
All right, Joe and Tom, thank you very much. And you might as well get ready for a big night in the NBA. No better time for a Sports Million Blitz'em tonight.
Enjoy Sports Millions pick'ems, but hate making the picks yourself? Well, Sports Millions has you covered. Head on over and play Sports Millions Blitz'em right now and let the computer do the work. Go to sportsmillions.com/Blitz'em to be able to win big prizes without having to make a single pick yourself. That's sportsmillions.com/Blitz'em.
Good stuff there. Looking forward to the card here tonight as the NBA already underway with the Hawks and the Cavs right now, with the Cavs up 33-23 and the Lakers. Yep, well, looks like they might have finally found a team they can beat. 26-18 on top of the Washington Wizards. Both those games in the first quarter here, getting ready, of course, at the 9 o'clock hour for the game of the night between the Rockets and the Grizzlies. And we did learn no Ja Morant here tonight for the Memphis Grizzlies, which means you can get him at a much better price. I'm starting to see threes popping up in the marketplace. This was as high as 5.5. But keep in mind, not a great spot for the Houston Rockets here tonight. This is their 4th game in 6 nights on the road, and they've had some battles here over the last week on this road trip. Memphis at home at the FedEx Forum there. Desmond Bane and company, they got more than enough firepower to be able to give the Rockets a run for their money. Wouldn't at all shock me if you can hop on the Rockets at a much cheaper price because no Ja Morant. I think they're still in pretty good shape in order to win that game here tonight. Same can be said for Minnesota and Utah. Minnesota, second of a back-to-back. Heck of a battle against Phoenix last night. Now they're in the altitude in Utah. Been all Utah money all day long here. Opened up as 7.5 point Minnesota favorite, down to 6. Still think there's a good opportunity here to back the Utah Jazz at home, rested in the altitude, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. All right, we got plenty going on in the college basketball ranks as well, including an update Penn State, Ohio State. We'll let you know what's going on as Game Time Decisions continues here on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. A very happy Thursday to you. Appreciate you stopping by as we got a lot going on here. And as we get ready to wrap up the football season, we said goodbye to college football a couple of weeks ago as the Ohio State Buckeyes are your national champions. We had the first year of a 12-team playoff. That was a whole lot of fun. We got one game left in the NFL to crown a champion there. That'll be next Sunday, but we'll have all sorts of live broadcasting coming from Radio Row beginning on Monday here on the SportsGrid Network. We will have the boots on the ground for you, getting you updated on everything you need to know live from New Orleans between the Eagles and the Chiefs. Looking forward to that, but let's not forget, we still got plenty of college basketball to go, plenty of NHL to go. How about the NBA in full swing as they continue to work towards getting to, I don't want to say their halfway point, but the All-Star break there. So that'll be fun. And the PGA Tour off and running here. In fact, Pebble Beach is the location of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am happening right now all weekend long. The biggest names on the PGA Tour are involved there. So a lot going on this weekend in place of football to be our first weekend in what feels like a very long time without there being any football being played. But that just means we got to get ready. There'll be plenty of Major League Baseball to talk about soon enough as pitchers and catchers, in fact, will be reporting in not too far from where my studio is here in South Florida. shortly enough. We did get an announcement earlier today. Kind of hard to believe. Some of these guys just can't figure out when to hang them up here and say when. But Max Scherzer has found another team to give him, well, $15.5 million. That's right. The Toronto Blue Jays, who have basically struck out trying to sign, well, anybody at this particular point over the last couple of seasons. They did land, well, on Max Scherzer. So kudos to them for overpaying another 40-year-old pitcher who will probably start 6 games and then end up on the injured list. Why do I say that? Because, well, he pitched 9 last year at 39 years old and couldn't get rid of the shoulder and hamstring injuries. And, boy, those 9 starts weren't he had a couple of good ones, but he ended up with nearly a 4 ERA in just 43 in the third innings. He struck out 40. He walked 10. Listen, this is his best days are clearly behind him. Toronto has certainly taken their shots on trying to sign some of the big name guys in the offseason, but unfortunately, it has not worked out. But he does join a rotation that will include the likes of Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, in fact, are some of the names. And if that doesn't move the needle for you, don't forget they also signed Anthony Santander from the Baltimore Orioles, Andres Jimenez, and also Jeff Hoffman, Yimi Garcia, and Nick Sandlin. So they are improved, the Blue Jays. But the good news is Blue Jays haven't traded either Vlad Guerrero Jr. or Bo Bichette, both of whom are going to be free agents after this season. And boy, oh boy, the rumors are flying that one, maybe if not both, will be playing in a different uniform within the next year or so. The Blue Jays went 74-88 last year. They finished last in the American League East, and that was for the first time since 2013. Don't know that things are going to get better with signing a 40-year-old Max Scherzer, but hey, the Cubs had no problem giving a 49-year-old Verlander, I don't even know how old, what is he, 42, 43? I don't know, why are these guys still pitching? None of them are named Roger Clemens. So who are we kidding, guys? But hey, listen, if you find a team that's going to pay you, you keep rolling. But get ready, because there'll be plenty more to talk about when it comes to Major League Baseball here in a few weeks. Win totals are out. We'll have much to say about all of that as we get a little bit closer to the middle of February. In the meantime, we do have ourselves, well, a couple of NBA games underway right now, including the Hawks and the Cavs. The Hawks trying to keep it respectable here. They do find themselves down 11 in the second to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 43-32. And the Lakers, Lakers pouring it on in the first quarter. They got 39 points. They still got about a minute to go here. Could the Lakers drop a 40-burger on the Wizards? LeBron's already up to 11 points, it looks like, in the first quarter. Well, he gonna need more of that, because let's face it, no Anthony Davis and no a whole lot of other things for the Lakers. This trade deadline going to be very interesting in the NBA. And the big name that keeps getting thrown around, of course, is Jimmy Butler. Now, from what we understand, the Golden State Warriors have some interest in making a deal with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler. The problem is, and here's a shocker, the Warriors are questioning whether or not Jimmy Butler is a good fit. Can you believe that? Yes. And listen, if you're the Warriors, I'd be very worried about him being a good fit, because he's, Jimmy Butler, not exactly the team kind of player, is he? And by the way, if you go to Golden State, it's not your team, Jimmy. It will never be your team, never be your town. In fact, it will be all about Steph Curry, and that's a rough situation, I think, expecting a guy that has basically quit on his teammates in Miami and forcing his way out, acting like a petulant child I'm not sure that Steph Curry is going to sign up for that. But we are hearing that maybe the Knicks could be open to moving Mitchell Robinson, if it makes sense there. Also, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, all names being tossed around in a possible 2 or 3 team trade deal here. We all know that Jimmy Butler wanted to go to Phoenix, but they'd have to get rid of Bradley Beal. And who in the world wants to take on a Bradley Beal contract that's just as bad as Jimmy Butler's $48.7 million deal that would cost any team who takes him a whole lot of future assets there. So I don't know what happens, and wouldn't it be shocking if nothing happens and, in fact, Jimmy Butler is stuck in Miami until next season? Wouldn't that be fun? For the life of me, I have no idea what Pat Riley is thinking here. Also, interesting of note, too, in college hoops, keep an eye on what's happening here in college basketball tonight, because we have some great games coming up. We do have one game that's currently underway in the Big Ten, and that is Penn State right now at home taking on Ohio State. And by the way, this is at Rec Hall and not the main pavilion that they usually play at Penn State. It's at Rec Hall. Ohio State up 10 at the break, 43-33. But you saw the game coming up in just about, I think, 45 minutes or so. That's going to be Illinois on the road taking on Nebraska. And boy, Nebraska, they could use a win. The problem is Illinois has owned Nebraska, including already earlier this season here. Nebraska getting 4.5. But Illinois has had some problems as of late, have come back down to earth. Is Nebraska exactly what Illinois ordered? Or can Nebraska finally do something they haven't been able to do in a very long time, and that is beat Illinois? Much more on that game, plus the rest of the schedule as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we are getting ready, of course, for 3 more games in the association tonight, getting ready to tip off at the 9 o'clock hour, where we'll have Houston and Minnesota. Ja Morant ruled out already for that game, so that has changed the landscape just a little bit, as they were a 5.5 point favorite, now just a 3-point favorite. The total's still up there, right around 234 and a half. You also will have the Timberwolves and the Utah Jazz in this one. And this is an interesting game because we've seen nothing but Utah money come into the marketplace, and I agree with it. Minnesota coming off of that big win last night, and it looked like Naz Reid was ruled out last minute against the Suns last night in that game. Also, Rob Dillingham was able to go, and they needed all the help that they could get in that game there. And boy, oh boy, they needed it, as they ended up coming back and beating Phoenix with Kevin Durant. Good stuff in that game last night, but all the starters on Minnesota had to play lots of minutes there last night. Still no Dante DiVincenzo. Looks like he is still out there. Conley also looks like he is ruled out. Feels like this could be just a tad too many points for Minnesota on a second of a back-to-back. All right, we were just taking side bets in the control room here, waiting for our next guest, the one and only Mr. Dave Sherapan. We were trying to figure out exactly what team he'd be repping tonight when he shows up here. I have no idea what the answer is, but I definitely did not have the Seattle Kraken on my bingo card. I would have enjoyed a heads up there, Dave, so we could have cashed a ticket there. But the Kraken, I had Joe Madden on earlier, and she's going sharking, man. She wasn't buying the Kraken tonight. Are you buying the Kraken?
I'm not really completely sold on it, but I don't have any SJ Sharkey stuff. So I have this. We're scrambling over here. We're getting ready for Super Bowl week, and been busy, and just had a little technical difficulty. So I'm glad that I made it. Thanks for having me. As always on Game Time Decisions. Yeah, I feel like we've gone to the well a few too many times recently with the Sharks, and they don't win on the road. They're on a 4-game road losing streak. So tonight on In-Game Live Game Day, I'll be doing it with Dane Martinez. But in honor of Scotty Wetzel and the Black Cloud play of the night, the play that just can't lose, where every single night he comes with something that he says double up, triple up, all this stuff. It's a real whole routine. We got graphics. It's a lot of fun. He would have the Seattle Kraken tonight. That would be probably
absolutely
the Black Cloud play of the night. So if we could put the Black Cloud on it and
okay,
Kraken stuff, that's what we're doing. But this is not going to be easy. If you take you'll probably be trailing. It might be okay to wait pregame and don't bet it, and when the Sharks get up 1-0, then come back and maybe do it. I
don't hate that.
A bunch of different ways to attack it. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game.
What did I'm looking forward to, and the puck drops 9 o'clock, by the way, Detroit and Edmonton. Feels like we might get some goals in that game. That and your Vegas Knights against Columbus are the biggest totals on the board here tonight. And boy, I could see a lot of goals in this game here. Skinner and net, Talbot for Detroit, Dave. But man, are we really laying 250 with Edmonton? Detroit feels like they could make this thing a little bit of fun tonight, no?
Detroit probably will be leading this game at some point. This won't be.
Yes.
This is what I call, I've dubbed this on BVB, Boston University book with Peralt, an uncomfortable lay. This will be an uncomfortable lay if you do Edmonton. This will give you that little bit of agita, that little bit of feeling. They'll probably win. The game will go over. That's a good look by you. And then the Vegas game, Columbus Blue Jackets have played beyond and above expectations, especially after the tragedy this summer and all this other stuff. They're playing with a purpose. They lead all of hockey in record to the over. So them coming to Vegas, probably team total over, I think 2.5 is not a bad play. And I think the Knights will score as well. This one probably will be over the total, I'd say by midway through the third period. This one has 4-3 written all over it, if not 5-3, something like that. With
I like that.
Netter. So that's the final score this one.
Yeah, I'd seen some money coming in on Columbus here, interestingly enough, but maybe on the puck line might not be a bad look. Take that 1.5 at even money. May not be a bad look there. I understand it's the night of all nights there, Dave, in your backyard. The release of the Superbook props book. The gates will open, the windows will open. People will be running, trying to get as much money as they can down while they can on the props tonight. What are you here? What are some of the more popular ones every year? Guys just wait online, and what are they running to bet, man?
It's getting less and less, but I will be down there after the show. I'm going to go down. It's like a little family reunion of, it's like, though, a family reunion, and you're getting older. Like some of the relatives go, you know what? I don't want to travel that far. You know what? I got a bar mitzvah this weekend. I'm not going. Or the props are out. Like in a lot of places, the day after the game was decided, they were out. So this doesn't have the same cachet, but it's nice because everything gets put on paper. There's big packets, and guys fire 2 dimes a pop. You'll see a lot of individual player props bet then. They'll probably take, there will be a safety. No. A lot of no's bet tonight.
Right.
A lot of no's.
A lot of no's. A lot of no's. We'll throw a few at Dave, though, when Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here as we look to wrap up this edition together. Joe Raineri, joined by the man we'll pass the baton off to here, coming up for a little in-game live. Dave Sharapan in the house here. And Dave, we talked a little NHL. We got, of course, a little time to breathe here next week. Radio Row over in New Orleans, all the excitement leading up to the rematch here between Philadelphia and Kansas City. Let me ask you, it feels like the spread, what we see is what we're going to get. I don't know that it's going to move much off of 1.5, but it feels like the pros are waiting for the last second and are going to bulldoze the under here to wait to see the public come in and how high it can get. Because I'm kind of shocked it hasn't moved up and over 50 and a half at this point. And if it hasn't, we all know the public's betting the over, Dave. So if the pros are coming in on the under, it ain't going to be until the 12th hour here on Sunday.
Crazy. Somebody's going around town here in Vegas and betting the under for 50,000 a pop. A couple places a couple places in town here have taken 50,000 on the under 49.
Wow.
So I don't know if they're trying to get them to move it or just betting it because that's what they really believe. But I mean, you put it out on socials when you see it from the places that have taken it. Like stations and Chris and Jimmy and Vinny over at South Point took another $50,000 bet under 49. They didn't move the line. They didn't move the line. So I don't know what that move is. What they're doing, but I know I've been told by a couple of my guys in town that they are going around town betting the under 49s and no one's moving it yet. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I would be surprised if it doesn't go up as we get later into next week. You know, this is what happens. The first week leading up to the Pro Bowl, the pros come and bet a lot of this stuff under. Props under, game under, all this other stuff. And then the second week we get closer to the game, and then all the public money starts really coming in on the overs. So I don't know. My initial send out was pick and 51. I thought it would have been a little bit. I thought 50 at least would have been given out. It's not there yet. I think we'll get there at some point. I don't know what it's going to close. I don't know. I've been looking and trying to find a reason. I still think Philadelphia, this one is number 5 of 6 in the last 6 years. The Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. So we're familiar with making a number, taking a bet, moving it, all that other stuff, right? This one is reminding me, and you know Newbie, he's a friend of mine. He's an Eagles guy. Put the thought in my head, and I can't get rid of the thought that this may end up being more like the Kansas City game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Mahomes is running for his life. The defensive line was getting through, and Tampa gave it to Kansas City pretty good. That's what I'm thinking right now, Joe. I mean, and again, it's Thursday. You can change your mind between now and then, but I really think that the defense of Philadelphia is gonna keep this game. It's not going to be a big shootout. Last time they got together in Arizona was 38-35. I don't think it's going that way.
Yeah, I don't see it. And I think the offenses were much better a couple of years ago than they are. Totally different style offenses too, as well. But the only thing that scares me with that point, Dave, is that Vic Fangio, 8 times his defenses with Denver and Miami have gone up against Pat Mahomes, and he's 0-8 against Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. So you can have all the defensive players you want. Fangio has not figured out how to beat Pat Mahomes yet. So it'll be a hell of a first time, though. That is for sure. All right, get out of here, Dave. We're going to pass the baton off to you here. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes for In-Game Live. And, of course, we'll be back again tomorrow for another edition of Game Time Decisions, as we'll have plenty to talk about heading into what should be a great weekend, huge weekend in college basketball again, NBA, not to mention the PGA, of course, with Pebble Beach. Will Scottie Scheffler in his first tournament of the year, will he end up winning it as the chalk? We'll have so much more to talk about there. But in the meantime, Don't go anywhere. In-game live is coming up next. You're not going to want to miss that. Plenty of action here tonight. We will be back for another edition of Game Time Decisions, same time tomorrow. So enjoy the games, cash a few tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow here on the Grid.